this audience, I guarantee, is well versed on the background history that, going back thousands of years, that human species have been a part of occult rituals, and the way they view it. Like, what's interesting is you can go back and look at science today was magic at that point. So it's a kind of an evolving understanding of what we think of magic. But the point being is that at that point, black magic, and people thought, the point is, was that what it was? Was it just something that was ahead of its time? But I do think the point is that these people believe through these certain ritualistic acts that they can control, influence, take advantage of people beneath them. You can go back to even an interesting tie to today with Peter Thiel is this, what is it called? Ambrosia, his company to use the blood of younger people, and this is a real thing for those that haven't seen this, to get to elongate the life of older people. That is just the creepiest thing in the world. And what's crazy is science, right? It's science. Well, you can go back to, what was it? What you might remember, was it Cleopatra, or who was it that used to bathe in the blood of people, because it was a person in royalty. I forget the exact person. And so the point is that this, whether backed up by science or not today, the point is that this is something that has been going on well before that understanding of whatever we call science was the case. So I believe it's far more than that. And either way, there's something to that from the ritualistic side that you can see practice. Even going over to Zionism again, right now, this is not just a background noise. This is, they're talking about slaughtering a red heifer. These are rituals, guys. That's what that is. And that's in real time. That's happening right now from one of the most, at least, perceived powerful entities on the planet. So this is not some background thing or some fringe part. They're the leadership of the leading part of that government. They're screaming about these things. And you can also overlap that with people in our country and our government too. It's not hard to see. You can go back to someone like, what is his name, Aquinto? Is that his name? The general, or the...
Aquino.
Aquino, thank you. It very openly a part of and that was at a time when it was less focused on, because it was pretty prominent, but that was one of the most visible ones. I remember that, from there it kind of faded into the background, but they were practicing occult right out in the open, or was it Nixon? The point is, you can show a lot of these people that have, or even Lincoln supposedly had seances and stuff in the White House. These are small things, but the point is that there's a lot of overlap there, tied to the secret societies, the different families, the what's the right word for it? These different skull and bones kind of things at these different schools, and so these people all end up going through these same rituals, and they go through the same practices. I find it hard to believe that they don't find some meaning in these things. And so, back to the question, if they view us like a bunch of chattel, like people that are just here to serve the needs of the elitists, they would say elite, then why wouldn't they consider that we're simply, find ways they could use us in that way? Let me be clear. I don't think that's what everybody in power thinks. I honestly don't even know to what degree these people actually believe in this stuff. But I think it is important to point out again that it's something that some of them very much do believe. That's all that matters. That's enough for me to be concerned about, for example, a conversation like the overlap of COVID-19, the injections, and the tainting of the blood supply, and injecting things into your body. And, again, it's hard to see this from the occult side of it when you're talking from a scientific lens, but why is it any different? You know what I mean? We're talking about some very serious things that whether we're talking about a sacrifice kind of idea, people dying, or something else, it's all very right there on the surface, and you just wonder to what degree that's happening. For me, I'm never going to go much. Me out there, it's about what you can prove, and I don't think we'll ever be able to prove intent, personal feelings, unless they express that. And so many of these people will never truly come out and say, yes, I believe that, or yes, I believe that we're through our bloodlines, we're somehow more important than you, which they very, very much believe, and I think that's obvious.
Yeah, felt sense of community, and just anything that springs to mind about that.
About what?
So, felt sense of community growing in the truth movement, and just all of us pulling together and gaining momentum and overcoming this thing, and just any kind of thing that springs to mind in that sense.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, I get a lot of pushback, and have for a long, even during COVID-19, it's doing the same thing, where I feel like I have a little, I feel like I can recognize, at least in my opinion, that people are calling this stuff out. My point during COVID-19 was it's not It wasn't partisan, as much as they were very clearly trying to make us think it was partisan. I was recognizing people that were just uncomfortable calling this out, but didn't have a voice. And I think we can look back and see that most people, whether they were pressured, blackmailed, lied to, that most people at this point recognized that there was something wrong then and now, I think. And so my point is that I definitely see a change that has been happening for a while. Well before that. But clearly more so now, post the Zionism awareness and all the stuff that's rapidly changing, that people are beginning to call these things out. Now we can have esoteric conversation, yuga cycles, shifting of the planets. What is it that's changing the way we view the world, or is it just that people in this field are forcing the truth into people's minds? I mean, either way, that's a conversation to have. The point is that I very clearly see this happening. I'm of the mind that what is happening today in the governmental sense or political sense is because of that. Whatever the cause, the catalyst, they're aware that people are beginning to see through these things. The collective, people they're no longer buying the long-held manipulations, like Zionism, for example, and so they're trying to corral people into a position where that's no longer relevant. And I mean, that's my personal opinion. It's kind of abstract, but like a technocratic idea where we can put they can drive us into a position where, there are social IDs and social credit or digital IDs and social credit and ideas that where if you say the wrong thing, it's not just that you get pointed out and you get boxed out. Imagine you have a small following on a social media platform, right? That feels like you have no voice. Imagine not even being able to access the social media platform, right? Or whatever it is. That kind of diminishing of any kind of reach to people. And so I think that's what they're clearly trying to accomplish by both sides of the paradigm and around the world. And that shows me that there is a rising awareness to broad things. Because there's specifics I could go into as well, but like a broad idea that, maybe we shouldn't have government in our lives. Maybe these people are trafficking human beings. I guess that's a broader topic in the world, but point being is that these things have begun to break down. And to the smaller point, the microcosm of it in the community with the carnival and so on, that these things are showing people that. Because I think that's the biggest block that we have. Like I said, with the bracelets we made during COVID that said, I am not alone, Some people just need to be told, like, you're not crazy. You're not the only one that sees this. Because they don't have the benefit of the community that we built. They don't know it. Maybe they haven't seen our shows. Maybe they only are tapped into partisan fields and they haven't even seen this stuff yet. And they just feel lonely. They're like, am I the only one that recognizes this is everything that they told us wouldn't be happening? Or under Biden, am I the only one that recognizes this is the same thing that they're doing on the other side? Whatever. And I think that is now becoming hard to miss, more and more and more, and that's why we are where we are. But overarching point is that I think it's you can make the old analogy, the darker before the dawn kind of a thing. It is a very hard time to live in. There's a lot of bad things happening, but at the same time, I feel like I've never been more hopeful for where people's minds are at. And I'm sure I'll get pushback on that, but I feel like it's very clear to me that I can talk to average people about things that a year ago would have been like, that joke, the meme, the fluoride stare, like people just going like, you're what? Like you're the one speaking uncomfortable truths at a party. It's like that's the kind of feeling you used to get. But today, people are listening. They're interested. Even if it's out of a, what's the right word for it? Like it's a game. Like a lot of people see this like a reality TV show. Regardless of the why, they're getting their foot in the door. And that scares a lot of people, I think. A lot of people in powerful positions that need you to be in line with a certain construct, like the two-party illusion, for example, or the idea with QAnon, right? They don't care what answers you find if they've got you asking the wrong questions. That's how that works. And if we're trapped in the two-party illusion, the false binary, and you're always looking to those boundaries, it doesn't matter that you can go, yep, I see it. Great reset, it's right there, but then only think the left side of that is doing it. You're never going to change anything if we can't see past that. And there's so many more than just the left-right paradigm, but of my opinion, that's the most important thing to challenge. But back to the original point, I very much think the community is making waves. And it's not just our community, man. It is people that are, for the first time in their lives, finding the courage to call these things out. And I think the power structure is afraid of that.
Okay, cool. Any just general thoughts or feelings you want to share, just for anything that off the top of your mind, from your heart, be it about subjects, whatever, go.
Well, I think in a personal sense, I've said many times on the show, I never thought that I would be in this position. I didn't fancy myself as somebody who, should be listened to, whatever it is. Like, it's just, like we were just jokingly talking about the other day, and you go back and look at the first time I did this show, the first publicly released daily wrap-up. And it's embarrassing, you know, and I left it up for a reason. You know, I'd show people, like, this is a journey, man, you know, but I'm stiff, I'm uncomfortable, the camera's too close, you know, it's funny. And what it's about the journey and the evolution of it, you know, and my point is that I did this because I thought it was important. I sacrificed a lot in my life because I thought it was important. I know it's important. And right in this moment, I say this recently, I said, I will probably suffer consequences. All of us doing this will probably suffer consequences for the rest of our lives in ways we can't even fathom yet. Hopefully not where this is going, but possibly. And I'd still do this because it's important. That's the kind of sacrifice that's necessary for what we think we're fighting. And I mean, I say that to be objective. I mean, what I know we're fighting, what I believe we're fighting and what we're up against. You know, and it's just interesting that I'm grateful to all the people out there that find value in what we do, who believe in the community, you know, in the different parts of this, and the, you know, the larger effort that we're waging here, that we're doing something like, I think somebody referenced, like, you know, some kind of a revolution, you know, like that we are standing up against some historical thing that will be remembered for a very long time. And it's important that we, whether our names are remembered or we're the ones being pointed to, that we recognize that we are making a difference every single day. Everybody in the chat, everybody out there is handing out flyers, whether, you know, protesting or anything else, whether it is actually making waves in the moment, you are reaching people. People see what you're saying, they resonate with you, you know. We just got to stay the course, man. I've never been more sure about anything in my life, that if we stop what we're doing now, that we will end up inevitably where we see this going. I personally just can't live with that. So I will sacrifice everything. And as always, everybody out there, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant. All right. Perfect. 2:30.